Daryl, hi. Very nice to see you again on our fourth podcast. I think they're getting better and better. I'm really enjoying it. I'm getting fantastic feedback, especially from old players, guys from
Mm,
sort of my era, but after me, your era. Guys are sending messages. They're really enjoying the podcast. So very nice to have you today for the fourth one. And I'm going to start with the cricket straight away because I think
mm,
in less than an hour, the first ball will be
mm.
bowled at the Oval. And I'm going to, very, very important test, obviously, probably more so for England. If they lose this, then they lose the series 3-1. If they win this, at least they get away with a drawn series. Australia obviously would love to win this and win the series in England. So, what is your thoughts on the test today?
Well, let's not forget Australia and hello, Quivers. They
Yeah.
retained the Ashes. So I think that's ultimately what the prize is. Just shows you the value of winning those first two test matches and starting a tour well. We spoke about that in the past. I think the last podcast before the third or the fourth test, we said that likelihood of England winning three back to back to win the series and the Ashes was probably not going to happen, and weather would play its role, and as we know, it has. But I hope again that we have good weather, Quibus, because from what I understand and see that it's not predicted to be a full 5 days, and weather will play its role, which would be a pity because it'll be a lovely finale to what has been a good series. It's been a good series, but if conditions are fair in that, I back Australia to be competitive again. Keep going back to they're missing that line guy. And will they play the spinner? There's the call for him to play. Does that make a difference? But it won't surprise me if England do go on to win this. I think they're confident. The tails are up. They feel they've been robbed, I read, of squaring it. But we said you start the tour well, you give yourself the very best chance. But I hope that it's good cricket. I don't really mind who wins, to be honest with you, Kubis. I just love to see them play good attacking cricket, which I think we know England are going to play. That's the beauty of England at the moment. And we've spoken about how they're putting bums on seats. People are still talking about them. Whereas, there's more of a mention of Australia. But I hope the weather's good and we see good cricket because the Oval has that ability to be good for batting and bowling. So let's hope we see some splendid cricket, which this sort of series deserves to see because it's been a good one.
So yeah, I see England announced the unchanged 11. So Jimmy Anderson is playing, which I'm
Yeah.
very happy about. I mean, he's an all-time great, probably arguably the best fast bowler in the history of the game with the amount of wickets he's taken. I see on Sunday he'll turn 41. I mean, for a fast bowler, it's just
Well,
unthinkable.
you see, you must differentiate the best ever or the most successful ever. You see what I mean? But you're right
Okay.
up there. Many would agree with you. The one question about him is his record in the subcontinent. And there was a time when he was accused of, or it was mentioned that he was sort of running away from playing too much Test cricket in the subcontinent because you've got to work a lot harder and longer for your wickets there. But now he's right up there. I mean, 41. I mean, that in itself is an amazing achievement for a guy to keep going. And he bowled a lot better. I felt in this last Test match. Perhaps he's a bit under pressure, but no talk of retirement. That's the thing when Quibus, when you get to this stage, if you're 19 and 20, you have a bad Test match or two. It's well, it's got a lot of time ahead of him. You'll learn a lot from the experience. He'll come back better. When you're 41, you have one bad test. It's retirement. When you're going to retire. So yeah, but
Tell me,
he's been marvelous. Yeah,
I didn't check the records, and
yeah.
uh, excuse my ignorance, but did you play against a young Jimmy Anderson, or was he
No,
after your time? You never
no,
played
he
against
was
him.
after. No, he was a good while after. And I think he virtually also came from nowhere. I mean, your mate Duncan Fletcher was coach then. Duncan heard of him or went to see him. He was playing up in the leagues. Remember, he had that action where his head was it's so far over, and he bowled that sort of big induckers. It obviously improved over time, but he's clearly been remarkable in the way that he's kept himself fit and his body in shape, and smart bowler. If I talk to bowlers, young kids, and often say to them, look, as a bowler, I think as a coach, your concentration between balls is probably requires more than that of a batter. And to me, it was always a study of once he bowled the ball, he was just pure, he was concentration set. You see his walk back, you could see that there was a lot going on, but not too much. It was very deliberate, walk back to his mark, turn, and away you go. Sean Pollock was a lot like that too. We see a lot of young guys, once they bowled the ball, the first 10, 20 steps after that, it's a bit of a joke. And then you see them get to the back and try and compose their thoughts. You can bank on ball 3 and 4 probably being a bad ball. And then suddenly they wake up and try to pull it back, and they try and slide in just to cover up, try and slide in ball 5 and 6, tidy the over up, and probably one of those goes for 4 in any case. But he was clearly a guy that's his success, I think, has been built around being very smart, very deliberate, and impeccable with his lines and lengths, And I think, Quibus, the impression that he's given me for a long time is that he knows where he wants to bowl. And often, with the case in England, the ball's doing too much. And 9 out of 10 inexperienced bowlers or impatient bowlers will try and come straighter and expect that magic ball. And as a batter, you know that too. It's coming straighter, bang, you clip him away, you off strike where you want to be. But he'll hang it in there as if to say, well, I know that so much cricket and so many wickets has taught me one thing, that if he's doing too much, I can't try and influence that. He may play, he may come a touch straighter. But you're talking, this is the beauty of these guys, eh? McGrath, Sean Pollock was one too. They're playing with a foot, eh? Fuller, shorter. They're playing in centimeters between too straight and in the channel. Now, that's the incredible skill of these guys. And he would just stay there and make peace with the fact if it's beating the bat, it's meant to beat the bat today. You never saw Anderson get too adventurous and coming too straight. Because I think time would have taught him and experience that there'll come a day when that'll find the edge. But he would just be persistent. And those guys, I can tell you as a batter, when you were getting forward, particularly against a guy like McGrath, and Sean Pollock was another one. If the ball did something and they're close to the stumps, if it tracks back into your elbow, you're straight in front. You can't miss the straight ball. Where some of them are a bit wider, you kind of know if you get a stride in, you probably hit me outside the line. But now you got a guy that can beat you on the inside and he can beat you on the outside. Now your forward defense becomes your most important shot, if I could call it that. Because I call the lever shot as well. You just haven't attempted to put bat on ball. But there's judgment involved here. And I think Anderson's that sort of guy. No, I mean, he's probably 130, 135. Look at Philander. But I tell you what, as a batter, they put doubt, and you start to almost think, well, and you end up going halfway, you end up sort of pushing at it, you leave a little bit of a gap. He's got you. That's, and I think, he was quite sharp at one stage. Then he just settled into that, just that brilliant ability to just keep getting it there and be patient. Not rocket science, is it, Quivers? But it takes a lot of skill and a lot of cricket.
No,
You were opening batsman. You've got the out there. You get your express guys. You're running in. I found they were actually in some ways challenging, but the better guys to face. But they're out there who can change it up, but he's constantly asking you, don't get it wrong. If you're too far over or you've pushed forward, you're not in, you don't know where your stump is, your angle's wrong, I've got you.
Oh, that you mentioned there, I was an opening batsman, and then you forgot to mention in playing club cricket, and then you batting in the top order for, I think it was for 8 years, 70 tests as a top order batter. You play in an era when even in South African domestic cricket, we mentioned it last time, each province had fast bowlers. I mean, a name we didn't mention last time, Natal, old Trevor Packer. I mean, he was a handful. I mean, all the teams had fast bowlers, and then when you play Test cricket, I mean, you faced McGrath, Brett Lee, Shoaib Akhtar, Wasim Akram, Waka Yunus. I mean, those are and Alan Donald, obviously in domestic cricket. do you mind just we're talking about Anderson and fast
Mm.
bowling? Just a little bit about the bowlers from in your era, that fast bowlers that you
Well,
played with and against.
yeah. Quibus, the thing was that, as we know, we weren't playing international cricket. So our very best cricketers, that was our pinnacle, was domestic cricket. We had 6 teams. So we were up against them I can tell you the first class cricket I played through a lot of that time, and playing against the mean machine in those times was as good as any test cricket I've played, particularly against them. It was as good as any test cricket. And each team had that 2, 3 world-class bowlers. I mean, EP went through a period where they basically had 4 international frontline quick bowlers. They just bowled 2 lengths up and short on that flat St. George's track. So when we got back in, I don't think it came as a surprise that we was competitive straight away. We were right up there, competitive straight away. And then your bowlers were bowling against some of the top players as well. So all around it was good, solid cricket. Whereas today it's not the case, but it's not the case for everybody because there's so much international cricket. We were still going back to play club cricket, remember? Even when I started international cricket, we were still playing club cricket. These guys hardly see domestic cricket today. So it does impact, and it's a subject one can explore and talk about for long periods, but it does impact on guys' ability to adjust into international cricket quickly. Now, where you within with your 15, 20 test matches, you found your feet and you're a big contributor, averaging above 40. But everyone's in that boat. And I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with the system as such. But it does impact on guys' ability. But I mean, no, we had some, then there was sort of other guys who came in on the scene. I mean, you talk about Corey van Sale, and there was a guy, James Cars. I mean, he was quick, James Cars. His son plays in England. I think his name's Byron. I don't know if he's like the old man. And he's a nutter, man. But it was tough. It was tough competitive cricket. As a young guy, it took you a while. But if you had the heart for it and determination, I think it was going to be. If you got through it, you knew you had a chance. And I think that's what can definitely help getting back into international cricket. I think we've mentioned a guy like Tertius Bosch. We had Farney, De Villiers, there were some really top bowlers. We probably just lacked a bit of spinners, but we weren't a country of spinners. Really, I mean, we never grew up facing Dennis Hobson was the leg spinner, but he wasn't in our era. We had a guy, Richard McGlashan, who he bowled. You knew he was going to bowl bad balls, but he was more sort of a Kumble style bowler. So, but I think that's what probably impacted on because we hadn't played in the subcontinent, so the criticism that we weren't good against spin was valid for a period. But I think once our second lot after me came along, and to follow, having built up that experience and knowledge, but it was one of those tags which just lingered. I think to sports cricket writers who didn't really know the subject too well. They tended to, anytime South Africa had a collapse, and they say, well, South Africa still can't play spin, but at the same time, India also did, but there's no question of that. But no, it was very good cricket, it was excellent cricket.
Well, I shared a house with old Terence Lazard. You remember Terence, Western
Lizzie.
Province opening bat? Lizzie. Later on, Lizzie captained Boerland. He went to play for Boerland. And it was quite interesting that, for me that loves the game so much, to actually share a house for a year with a like a first class opening batsman, and to see Terence prepare and how he prepared for innings. And I must say, Terence, I mean, his preparation was amazing. I used to go down to the nets with him. I must have thrown a million balls to Terence Lazard. And we used to go down to United, the track there next to Greenpoint Stadium, where United Cricket Club played their club cricket, and they had cement nets. And Terence used to get balls from Western Province, the junior ball, 4 3/4 ounce, I think it was, the smaller balls that the kids played with, under 13 and that. And he used to get me off about 12 meters, throwing to him. And then say he was playing Eastern Province on the weekend, he would get me to bowl. Obviously, I can't throw left-handed, but he got the angles, same as what he expects from Brett Schultz. And he had some bowlers. I think he said it was Bosch or Farney de Villiers when they played Northerns, used to bowl balls quite wide of the crease, and he would get me wider. So he would prepare for each bowler and then tell me exactly which angle, throwing around the wicket to him, and his preparation was amazing. He would spend hours before a game like that. And I mean, you played with and against Terence as well. Very, very interesting character. He had a lot of he had some funny ways. Maybe you want to go back and talk a little bit about Terence and.
Yeah, we did a whole half a podcast or half of one of these with talking about Brett Schultz. That was another name. Oh, the meanest of them all. The meanest of them all, El Schultz. Oh God, I'm glad I didn't have to deal with him too much. But yeah, no, now Lizzie, I tell you, he was a very methodical guy. As you said, prepared very well. I like the way you used to talk, because I had a discussion once with Jeff Boycott about batting, and he said to me, batting, a lot of batting's got to do about angles. Is getting your position right in terms of what you expect and the angles that you're going to deal with. And I think the guys today are more proactive in terms of batting, which we weren't. Where they stand, how they stand, what they're trying to do, working in the bowler's angle. Gary Kirst used to talk about, well, he'd want to be in the position of where the bowler's stock delivery is essentially getting to the bowler's channel, so he's strong there. So I think as an opening batsman, it's probably more challenging because you're dealing with that new ball. But Terence, a limited player, but a good player at Quibus, very strong mentally. I can tell you, he was very strong mentally, gave a lot of thought to the game. He was a smart guy, as we know. He's probably too smart for the game and for himself. But very, very smart in that regard. He had that low stance, cap on, and the bat was fairly back. So he was very low, very strong through the offside. But just a classical player that, there would have been a time he would have got a run. If South Africa were in Test cricket, I'm sure there would have been a time where he would have got a run. And let's not forget, I tell you, when he was playing with us, I think he was a medical student on top of it.
Yeah.
And we had qualified by that stage already. So to pull off the two says a lot about him. But he was an interesting character. I remember he had these. I've never ever asked him why, but he was top of the order, him and Al-Sifi. So we had Greenpoint. So we had Hellenic there. We had Hellenic opening in the batting for us. Up front there, the two boys. And what a contrast those two. We could do a whole bloody thing like this on Lawrence Seif as well. Also a very fine cricketer. I tell you, let that guy could bat. He'd have played a good many tests for South Africa for sure. And so anyway, back to Lizzie. So you would, I don't know if they have it today, but we always had the 10-minute bell, and then you had the 5-minute bell. So the bell used to get rung, the 10-minute, both bells were rung on the balcony. I'm thinking on Newlands. So ding, 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 you hear the bell. So he'd be sitting there just like this now. Won the toss, we're going to bat. Sort of, I don't know, what he's warmed up in. And then as that 10-minute bell went, he'd take all his kit off, charge into the shower, have a cold shower, and then, now listen, time's ticking, eh? So he's like, at 5-minute bell, basically, you want to be downstairs already. You sort of, the first ball's got to be bowled. At 5 minutes, you basically got to start getting onto the field, And then so he just wouldn't towel off. So I could now get kitted up. Thigh pad, trousers, shirt, you name it, still wet. And in those days, helmets weren't kind of the big thing yet, eh? So he'd happy to wear his cap, get down there, still dripping, and off he'd go to bat. That was his routine, you see. He was a very laid back guy. I can assume maybe was his switch on, And then there was a time he seemed to go through a little bit of bad trot. As we all do as batters, you start to question your routines, you start to question yourself, and you wonder, what the hell do I do here now? Then I noticed now that 10-minute bell, he was padded up. There was no shower. 10-minute bell, I was padded up, everything. So, the batters are in the change room then and the start of the innings. And as a number 4, I just put on my thigh pad in my box and make sure everything else is ready. Pads you might put on, or the pads are there so you can just quickly at the fall of a wicket, you put it on. So you're all in the same space at that time, going about your own little shit about what you need to do and not to do. Now he's like, gets downstairs there, check. This game was against, I think it was Transvaal, because it was Transvaal and EP, it was EP Transvaal. He's gone. 5 minute, He's gone even before the umpires are walking out. He's heading towards the middle of the pitch. He's the first out there before the umpires, before the players. He's there. He's ready, boy. He's left his opener. He's left half the his left seat behind him, and
No
his ball
shower.
comes along. Yeah, no. Seats, the openers walk out together, man. He's left his opening partner. The umpires are still coming after him. Transvaal haven't even gone sort of coming onto the field. He's in the middle. Completely changed his approach. You see, gone the 360. Out first ball. Out first ball. And you mates with them. You must actually gladly correct me the next podcast we have. Perhaps you can ask him. So anyway, next game comes along. It was a Nissan Shield. They were back-to-back Nissan Shield games. If it wasn't EP Transvaal, it's one of the teams. Next one. Same. I'm sitting there now wondering, okay, we win the toss, we bat in again. Sitting, fiddling around like we top 4, 5 of the teams out. And 10-minute bell, Lazard's padded up again. He's padded up again. Now he's sticking with us. Now give it a chance. Give it a chance. Yeah, give it a chance. Go and sit up. You could get into the chairs now. The game's about to start in Newlands, in the old stadium you're watching down there. There he comes out again. He's ahead of the opposition. He's left Seif behind him. He's got to the middle of the pitch for umpires for anybody. Out first ball. Again, back-to-back first ballers. Back he goes inside again. Next time we had a game, back to the 10-minute bell, shower. Into the shower again. That's how I remember it. I really would like you to but this is what this game does to you. And then look at opening batters, that's a tough job, eh? I was actually funny. I don't know why I was thinking about it yesterday, Quibs, and you also opening batsman. How many go-to job where Oak's he's basically throwing something at you to try and mess with your mind, and if he can try and hurt you, that's your living. Bar a policeman, which I think in South Africa that's must be the most dangerous jobs in the world, where your life's on the line. I mean, cricket, we joke about it, but you by and large you're safe today. Well, no, you do have your free moments where it's not the case, but that's your job. So it's one of the more interesting jobs in the world is being an opening batsman, and that new ball does. I think after many years, that new ball starts to play with your mind. Eh? But no, he was a character, fine cricketer though, fine batter. I mean, he would have had his moments. He would have had his international times. I'm sure about that.
Oh, yeah, no, Terence. I'm still in contact with Terence. He's left Cape Town. Last time we spoke, he was in Spain, and I know he's also got a place in Dubai. So Terence is definitely getting around. He's moved on from opening the batting against Donald and the boys. But Daryll, the last time we spoke quite a bit about Rice and Barlow, I wanted to ask you a little bit about. I was privileged enough to Bob Woolmer coach me in. I was 10 years old in Johannesburg. I went to Auckland Park Law School, and Bob came out as a young pro. His first season as a pro, I think it was 22 years old. He played Kent seconds at the time. And I'll never forget this. I've never seen an English pro in my life. I'm a 10-year-old Afrikaans boy in an Afrikaans school. And we arrived for sort of our pre-season started about a week before the first match at the Nets, 10-year-old boys. And here's this guy all in whites with that horse, the Kent horse with the 2, played second.
Yes.
And I'll never forget, he had his kit there, and everything, his coffin, his pads, his gloves were all grey nickels. And I thought, wow, this is now in his whites. And then he started speaking with that Kent, Bob had the very strong Kent accent. And as a young Afrikaans boy, it made such an impression on me. This coach in his whites, I'm used to a PE teacher in his khaki shorts and rugby socks coaching us. And we had Bob for the season. And then probably about 20 years later, well, I was 22. So 20 years later, I opened the batting with Bob at Avondale. And I had such a respect for Bob. I called him sir. So I would hit the ball into a gap and I'll call, yes, sir, no, sir. And Bob came over to me about 10. I said, Stop calling me sir. Just call me Bob. Yes, sir. It was just in me, that Afrikaans sort of background.
Yeah.
And it was such an experience playing with Bob for that season. He opening the batting at Avondale, learning from Bob. Often, if I stayed in long enough, he batted number 4, 5. A few times I batted with him. Now, as a coach at international level, I felt at club level Bob got a bit too technical, and most of it went over the heads of the clubbies. He started, he used to get us in the nets and do throwdowns, and he said the drive is all your right hand. Now, I've been taught grip tight with the left hand. We practice drives with the left hand, hitting straight. Take your right hand off the bat. Bob got us to take the left hand off the bat, and you're playing like a squash shot. He said, the power in your right hand, and he would get us to play cover drives with the right hand. And then he had some theories facing leg spin. We played club cricket against leg spinners, and Bob would get us to you sweep basically every ball now that's against the spin. And he had a lot of theories. But I think at test level, working with players like yourself, Gary Kirsten, Cullis, these guys, I think that was very much Bob's level of coaching, where you could relate to him. How did you find? You must have played most of your cricket under Bob as coach. What was it like working with Bob and having him as a coach at international level?
I enjoyed Bob. I think he was very, very innovative. I think he did a lot for our one-day cricket. He challenged the way that we went about one-day cricket coming out of domestic cricket in South Africa, and particularly going to the subcontinent, where we had a one was 95, about a year before the 96 World Cup, which was played in India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. It was that World Cup. And we played in a triangular with Australia and Pakistan. And Pakistan, Australia made the final. We got thumped 3 times by Australia and thumped by Pakistan. And we were still, with Kepler Wessels was captain. And in those days, you had 15 overs, and then the 2 fielders out. Then after 15, you were allowed 5 out. So they were at 15 overs, 120, 130, Pakistan. Wessels is captain, opening the batting. We were here at 40, 50, if we were lucky. And it was Bob's first tour. It was clear that the year later, playing in the World Cup, and our first game was against Pakistan in Karachi. I remember it clearly, our opening game, where benchmarks had to be set. We had to be up at 120. That became the new, and which subsequently led to, Bob was never going to lead the side under Wessels. Wessels basically got shafted. Well, he had to move on, which I can't understand why he felt bad about that, because the type of game that we needed to play wasn't his game. And Heinze took over. So that was, I think Bob had a lot to do with that. And we had to change the way we played. We had to learn to sweep. We had to learn how to deal with reverse swing. And that first game, we were at 120. And we set ourselves up for that World Cup. We didn't pull through in the end. So he was incredibly innovative. He used to talk about the dill scoops and stuff like that. He was talking about it then. We used to laugh at Bob, please, man. You're talking nonsense now. Honestly. I mean, I'd never swept in my life. At least he got me to paddle, sort of lap it down, get the spinner behind me for one, and you take field somewhere out of somewhere else, and he's out of the game essentially. Now, with the way they played, was the way, honestly, Bob was talking in those days. I mean, if ever there's a man smiling in his grave, it's Bob Woolmer today. So he was ahead of his time in that regard, but a good guy, very knowledgeable. He worked well with the guys. He was a big influence on our greatest strength. He was Alan Donald. He was, Alan's coach and mentor. So that was massive for the team. But yeah, it's a pity. I think he would have absolutely thrived and loved the game today with Test cricket and particularly T20 cricket and the innovation, which was Bob's thinking. I mean, it's typical of Bob. We used to do the old bottom hand driving drills, I think he used to spend many hours thinking, okay, how can I actually sell this game a bit differently or teach guys differently? But the ultimate pro, wasn't he, old Bob? He used to, I mean, I played against him for Stellenbosch at Avondale. And I used to run in and bowl little seamers, and I bounced him. I managed to get the ball over his head. He just laughed at me, Bob. But a cricket man, eh? A cricket man of note. Yeah.
So interesting
Yeah.
no, I've got unbelievable fond memories of Bob. I remember we played a match against Greenpoint, against Claremont at Claremont, and Bob was already 45 then. That was his last one of it. I think that was his last game. He said then he called it a day after that. He didn't finish the season, and they had a young Les Ryan that played for Province
Yeah.
B.
Yes.
Les was quite quick, and we played on that. Wicket up at Claremont, quite a green top on the second Saturday. And Les bounced Bob he bowled him 2 bounces, and Bob walked down the wicket, and he gave him a little talk about respect. And, who the hell are you to bounce me? I faced Andy Roberts and Dennis Lilly. I mean, you think you're going to scare me? And Les ran in and I knew Rest quite well, so I know it was coming. And he bowled Bob a third bouncer, and I think Bob, after that talk, wasn't expecting another short one. He thought he told the youngster off, and it cut Bob's eye open here, so he came off. It was bleeding quite a lot. He was sitting in the change room with an ice pack, and while his hands were shaking, I mean, it's quite obviously not a nice experience to get hit on the eye by a fast bowler. And Bob, he sat there and I think he was in a bit of a state of shock. And he started talking about when he faced Andy Roberts, and Andy came in, and how he faced the short ones and even pulled him. And he started talking about Dennis Lilly. And when you talk and you sit there, and these are guys that I saw them at the end of their careers, and I just thought, wow, I'm sitting here with this guy. He's actually faced a Dennis Lilly and a Andy Roberts at Ambrose and these guys at full pace. And I just thought, wow, it's when you get these older players and the influence they've got on youngsters. I know what influence these guys had on me. I also immediately, when you talk about a guy knowing the game, I think of Hilton Ackerman, and people are quick to talk about Mr. Cricket, but I always think if there's really, for me, in my eyes, a Mr. Cricket, it would be Hilton Ackerman. He had such a feel for the game. He almost had a crystal ball. He would predict. He
Yeah.
coached for us at University of Cape Town for one season, just before he actually passed away. During that time, when he was my coach at UCT, I was head of cricket there, so I spent a lot of time with Hilton. You must have had quite a lot of dealings with Hilton as well, Dutchman. In your story on Hilton, your views on Hilton?
Yeah, he many would agree that he just spoke so well about the game. And I don't think there was ever a technical discussion around the foot and the arm or the hands or actually nothing. But he just spoke about how cricket actually works. And you used the word crystal ball. I've never spent time with someone who could so consistently predict almost to the ball when a wicket would fall. He would call moments in the game, Quervis, which I think obviously he'd been around the game a lot of many years as a player, as a coach, as a watcher. And his ability, and I think it must have been a bit psychic and a sixth sense that I tell you the time and time again. And I don't know if you had the experience. He would call it to the ball, and he would tell you how the session's going to happen. He would tell you what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, Daryl. No, I've clearly. I used to sit with him that season up at the University of Cape Town Oval, and he was coaching the first team, and obviously a university side, young players. And Hilton was just amazing. He used to sit there with me. We had old Richard Lotter, was Neil Lotter, that played for Province. He opened the bowling with Farrell, Boots Farrell in those days. They opened the bowling for Province, Barlow days, and his son, Neil Lotter's son, Richard Lotter, opened the bowling. Tall guy.
Yeah.
He played one game for Province. He played at Potch against Gauteng. And he was our opening bowler. And for club cricket, he was quick. And he bowled, and we prepared a green top. I can't remember who we played against, but we prepared a green top. It could have been, actually, if I recall correctly, it was against Ulma. And at the time, Kenny Jackson was playing for them, or Jacko.
Yeah,
And
Jacko.
Lotte was having a go at Kenny. And Kenny absolutely took him apart. And Kenny scored most of his runs. Our guys got all excited with the green top. They had about 4 slips and a gully in. Lotte was steaming in, bowled everything short. And Hilton sat up there with me. And after 2 overs, he said to me, these guys are going to be over 100 by lunchtime, and probably not one wicket down because our guys are just bowling the wrong length. And I said to him, Hilt, should I run down and just talk to the guy at fine leg and send a message that they must pitch it up? He said, no, let them bowl short. It's the only way they're going to learn. And at lunch, I mean, I think Jacko was on about 60 or 70. Uh, and he came at number 3. He came to bat at 3, didn't even open. So he was blazing away. And Lotto went for about 8, 9 and over. It was like a T20 match. And I remember Hilton calling them together, and he said, you bowled right up to lunch. You never had a third man in. And they scored about 70% of their runs in that third man area, cutting it through or over slips. And I mean, Hilton predicted the first over Lotto bowl. He said they're bowling without a third man. They're not going to put a third man there because they're all excited about the Knicks going to slip. And I can tell 100 stories of Hilton, uh, that same kind of, well, call it reading the crystal ball, predicting what was going to happen that season with the university guys. And also just Hilton as a person. I think, yeah, I don't know of any other cricketer that I can recall that was as popular amongst other players. He had a season in
Yeah.
Holland. He had one
Yeah.
season there at VRA in Holland, or a few seasons. And
Is that where you
Hilton,
got the,
even now,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
is that where you got the nickname Dutchman?
I presume so, yes. Dutchman from his days in
Yeah.
Holland, yeah. And there's such good stories about Hilton. The guys, he played for VRA Cricket Club and in Amstelveen. And I had about 4 seasons down in Holland. And I mean, Hilton, when they see me, you're South African, they all, oh, you know Dutchman. And it's stories
Yeah.
about Hilton, legendary stories. The
Mm.
I don't know, they tell you how many times, they have those grachts, the waterways there in Amsterdam, and Hilton after a game would have a few dops with the money, and then on his way back to his apartment on his bicycle with his cricket coffin balanced between his legs, and then Hilton would go down there into the grachts with his bicycle, and those things are deep. Uh, there's so
Yeah.
many stories about Hilton, just classic story, batting on the matting wicket there and that. So yeah,
Oh,
no, I've
yes.
very, very fond memories of Dutchman.
Yeah. 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 I think so many would share those sentiments.
Daryl, and then I'm going back a bit down memory lane today. Uh, Also, just we mentioned briefly that Transvaal Mean Machine. You remember at one stage, old Roddy Estwick. I see he's now coaching somewhere, Barbados or one
Mm.
of those sides. He's coaching again. He was there, that Spook Hanley, Alan Curry. I mean, you
Yeah.
must have played against all these guys, Ray Jennings. We
Yeah.
spoke about it in the last one. But I mean, what a good time. We often look back and it's all, we were banned from international cricket. We were isolated. But I think the guys, they missed out on Test cricket. But that era of provincial players, you guys also, you went on to play Test cricket later, but that was a very special time in South African cricket. I think our cricket has never been stronger than during that era when we're actually not
Mm.
playing Test cricket, with our players also playing in the UK, like we said in the last podcast. Um, as a young, I mean, you were 17 when you
Yeah. I started.
played first class
Yeah.
cricket.
Well, A section. Yeah, I would have been 17. Yeah. I was playing B section, which was first class. I was still at school. Yeah. But I mean, that name, Roddy Estwick, I think he got the name Nesquik. He eventually got the nickname Nesquik, which was a very enjoyable drink because Nesquik is a strawberry
Yeah.
powder. Remember, we grew up on it, man, mixed with milk. So
Yes, yes.
because why his cousin was Sylvester Clark. They were cousins, and both from Barbados. And Sylvester had just left Gauteng, left Transvaal, and I think he went to his next call was Northerns. And we always kind of had a season opener against Transvaal at the Wanderers or Newlands. And Sylvester had left, and an announcement was made that Roddy Estwick, his cousin, was going to be replacing him. And we thought, oh God, not another Sylvester, not another Sylvester. And he arrived. I played. It was his opening game. I arrived there, and it was this big bug, and we thought, oh no, the big guy. Roddy. If you see Kieran Pollard, that's what Roddy Estwick looked like. I thought, oh my God, he's surely going to bowl at the same pace. And Kenny McKeown, what a marvelous player. He batted, yeah, he was at 4. I think I was at 5 or something. And Roddy came on to bowl. I don't think he got it above 120. He had the stuttering run up. He improved as the season kind of went on, but he was never going to get it more than 130. And I still remember Kenny McKeown batted, got a few, came in and he said, well, he's a whole lot better than his cousin. Where's he been? But yeah, but he was skillful. I think he's also been a West Indian bowling coach. He's got taken on a career in coaching. So yeah, it was quite a remarkable swing. I mean, he reminds me of that guy. We played against him just to go off it a bit, the question quiz. But I think of there's a guy, Cameron Cuffey. He might have played 10 or 15 tests for the West Indies. And my last tour was to the West Indies was 2000. And he might have debuted there, or the first time we'd seen him. Also, Man Mountain, massive guy. You thought, oh my God, here we go. You know, Ambrose and Walsh were playing, but they were at the they were fine bowlers, but you know, they weren't express or quick. You know, you kind of knew what they were, both looked the same. And Nixon McLean was probably one of their quickest bowler in that era. But this guy, Cameron Cuffey, played. And I think the first test we saw him was in Barbados. Now, he sort of ran in, he was all arms, and he was no quicker than 130, but consistent there. But you always thought, hang on, perhaps he's hiding something. Such a big man, surely should be able to bowl quicker. And Barbados then, where the end that he was bowling from, there was a fine leg or third man area where there was space between the boundary rope and the stadium wall, or the stand wall as such. Space where kids could play and knock about. And my oldest boy would have been about 4 or 5 then. Aidan John was there with his mom and watching the test match. And as kids would have it, they drifted down alongside them. God, it doesn't happen today. So behind where Cameron Cuffey was fielding, he got into, it might even been Alan Donald's boy. They got into a little game of cricket there. And the story was told to me by a South African friend who was sitting now behind this, probably about 4 or 5 rows up, with the contingent of South Africans, West Indians, and whatever. And so the kind of kids get playing there. And so anyway, they get to know that it's Daryll Cullinan's boy there, and it was Alan Donald's boy there. These kids are playing and whatever. So Cuffey's bowling to me, he's down at fine leg. So these little boys that, he was telling me my son knocked one over the rope and Cameron picked the ball up and tossed it back and he bowled. And then I remember one over, I drove him for 3 4s. Bang, bang, bang. It was a good over for me. And he was back at fine leg again. And next moment, my son's batting, happens to be batting, he hits the ball and Cuffey's going after the ball and he throws it back. And then in this South African contingent, the West Indian people are wonderful people. They all became friends. So he's aware of whose son's playing. Now the son's batting on the side of the field and dad's in the middle and Cuffey's fielding for the son. And then he's bowling to the dad and the ball's going to the boundary. So apparently this West Indian chirps up. He says, hey, Cuffey, he said, the dad's got you chasing leather and the son's got you chasing leather too. Oh, God. That sort of humor. It was quite a funny moment. But Estwick, and then we had Mosley. We had a good few guys after that rebel tour. I mean,
H. Hartley Lane. Hartley Lane. I mean, he was there.
Yes. Ezra. We had Emerson Trotman.
Oh, yes.
I was at Borders. So they weren't big players. And E.T. came along and he bowled and he batted for us. And it's the only guy, but Jan Smuts, it's the only guy I've ever batted with in my whole career where we ran 4. He was quick and I was young then. I was quick as well. One time ever on a normal size cricket field we ran 4. Perhaps the fielder was pretty slow. But what a character. I mean, they introduced, Fouad Bacchus. Remember him? You went to Cape Town, you'd have come across him.
Yes.
You'd have got to know Fouad, yeah. So a few
Both of them. And
Yeah, they
Alan
were.
Johnson, old Alison Johnson, he's
Oh, what a
still
legend,
we're
eh?
still
He
mates. What
wasn't
a
part of the
legend,
Rebel
yeah.
Tour, though.
No,
Remember, he wasn't part of the Rebel Tour. But I
no.
played a good few years with him at Western Province. But what a gentleman. What a lovely man. He's still here.
Yes, yes.
And
I
he,
spoke to him last week. We had a chat last week.
yeah,
He's doing very
and
well coaching in Cape Town. He's
yeah,
coaching Claremont.
yeah. And we started out talking about cricketers playing first class cricket and the influence guys had. Then you had that Oak Franklin Stevenson. I mean, that guy, we know he was a good guy. I played a fair bit against him. I mean, he was he came those rebel tours. I mean, he was an amazing cricketer, that guy. He'd have, you talk of Jason Holders and those guys today and the Pollards and Andre Russells getting contracts. I mean, he would have Frankie Stevenson, because he was brilliant with the ball. He bowled one of the best slow balls ever, and he hit the ball a long way. Would have been $1 million cricketer 10 times over in today's time. And it chose him the money to come and play, and the money was, and they got paid well to stay on and play. It just wasn't that sort of cash back home. So, I mean, he was massive. And then later on, you had a guy like Vasper Drakes, who was a fine cricketer. He got to play for the West Indies eventually, but he was past it by then. And we had a good few years of Otis Gibson, also a brilliant cricketer.
Yeah.
So, they also played their role. The English professionals from coaching, the English professionals who played here. We always had, I mean, remember Gooch and Embry played for Province for years. So if you think of that era, we had 2, 3, 4. Then you go through the quality of our local cricketers. And it was, I was thinking back suddenly in a hurry now again. I mean, there was some tremendous cricketers and cricket being played.
Yeah, Daryl, I had a special request. That's why I was sort of leading into when you played as a youngster, the two other players that I know, I mean, Hilton Ackerman, we talked about him. He played like 4 years SA schools when he was at Daryll College. But you also had a Herchelle Gibbs that played
5.
first class cricket.
Hilton played 5, Quibus. He played 6.
5.
Yeah, he was the only guy ever who's played. He played
5.
standard 6, which would have been 8 all the way through.
Yeah.
So any cricketer ever who's done
schools.
that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then you had a young, I mean, obviously, I would say after that for me, Peter Kirsten, when he was still at Sax, he played for Province. What a cricketer. And rugby player at that time as well. I mean, Peter Kirsten, when he played for Sax and then played for Province, got injured.
Well, Peter, remember, Peter had that run when he started out at 19. He got 6 first class hundreds in a row. So take it as a given. And to me, on his feet, throwing, pace off the mark, the best fielder that I certainly played with, seen ever. I mean, Jonty was different. Jonty was off the ground pretty quick. Got up, good arm. But in terms of accuracy, picking the ball up on the run, hitting the stumps, Peter the best I've seen. And, gone on a bit now. So I think I can start to perhaps talk a bit like best I've ever seen. But he would have been, I think, our Alan Border. He'd have played, would have got 10,000 test runs. He had the game to play all around the world. He was more than a useful spinner. So 100 test wickets, 100 one-day wickets. And he still got a test 100 at 38, if I recall, playing in England. In the 92 World Cup, he was one of the star batters. He, I think, was second to Martin Crowe eventually, amount of runs. So, if he'd had the incentive of international cricket from the age of 17, 18, he would have played till 40, which essentially Alan Border did. And he had the game to play anywhere in the world. The other guy I think as a batter was just as good was Kenny McKeown. Amazing player. Guys said to me, what was McKeown like? I say, if you watch VVS Laxman, you're watching Kenny McKeown. Those two very similar players. Magnificent player. A tremendous record in England playing for Essex. But Peter would have been sent, no doubt. He would have been I don't think, it would have been Pollock or Richards. Graham Pollock or Barry Richards. Perhaps they would have, but I don't think they would have probably played as much because Peter would have played into the 90s. They wouldn't have been playing as much cricket. Perhaps they would have got to it, I don't know. But they wouldn't have, I'm sure they wouldn't have played as much cricket as Peter potentially, because Peter would have then played till 94, 95. And he would have started at the time that Border started, sort of late 70s almost. Yeah. You would know his cricket very well, Quibus.
Yeah, he was an absolute hero. I watched him. I watched about 2 or 3 of those hundreds at Newlands when he got the 6. I was watching there as a young Stellenbosch student. Peter organised for me the first time to go and play some club cricket in Derbyshire. I actually shared an apartment with him and John Wright, the New Zealand opening batsman.
You've got around it. You've got around.
But I mean, I saw Peter score a double 100 at Chesterfield. He got a 200, and I think during that time he scored at least 3 double hundreds for Derbyshire. I mean, just a phenomenal player. And at Newlands, he was really the prince or the king of Newlands. Peter in full flow. He was just beautiful to watch. Cover drives, playing spin, as you said, and phenomenal fielder. Yes. So Kezi, and then a few people ask me to sort of there's often a debate about Herchelle Gibbs. I mean, I got to know Herchelle very well. He played for Avondale, but also I was teaching at Bishops, and he was in his final year in matric at Bishops. And I was teaching sport, and I never forget, obviously sport started at about 2, 3 in the afternoon after lessons at Bishops. And Herchelle would come. I'll be teaching the last sport lesson of the day out on the rugby fields, and Herchelle comes walking through the gates with his dog bag, with his rugby kit or cricket kit, whichever season it was. And Herchelle come up, and he never called me sir because I played club cricket. Hey, Quibby, how are you? Hello, Hirsch. Are you just arriving now? Yes, we've got rugby practice. So he wouldn't come to lessons at all, and then he'll just come for the sport in the afternoon. But also at a very young age, and what a talent. And a lot of people say, because maybe of Herchelle being Herchelle, full of the joys of life, he always had a good balance. And he's got a phenomenal record, but he probably could have been a much better cricketer even if he had, for instance, a Lazard's sort of mindset. You played quite a bit with Hersh. What do you think of Herchelle?
He was exceptionally talented guy. We know, I mean, you guys talk about his rugby. They still talk about the rugby that he played. As cricketers, we played soccer often. It's total natural. And I never realized that. So maybe it's a while back, I was watching him play a bit of rugby, old video clips, and he kicked left-footed. He was a left foot. He'd kick for poles. He kicked left-footed, and whatever he bowled right. He wasn't really a bowler, but he batted right and threw right, but kicked the ball with his left foot, which is quite unusual. Normally, it's left or right arm, but he kicked left-footed. So, played some great knocks for South Africa. He really played. I think he would have been a better number 3. I don't know if opening was really where he should have settled. And I think he got into the opening through opportunity. He has a gap like Gary. Gary Kirsten was never an opener.
Yes. Yeah.
So he got thrown the opportunity, and I played in the game for Western Province down in PE. And the opener was injured. And he got 170 and he never looked back. But no, one of the most talented cricketers, I think, or sportsmen this country's ever produced. And I think also he was one of those guys that he had a full run of T20 cricket. Would have been quite sensational, because that ability to play all these shots and improvise. And I mean, that 175 he got at the Wonders. I mean, I was there, I commentated on that camp. It was an amazing innings where he was within a whisker, a shot or two of getting a double 100. And I think he would have been the first cricketer to ever score double 100. And when he got out, he had plenty of time. But set that went up, and so he's the greatness about him that he's given South African cricket and world cricket some great moments. And yes, you could say, well, he could have capitalized more. You can say that about every single player. I'm one. Never, they'll say, he never fulfilled his potential. He never this and that and whatever. But Herchelle has left He's left his mark on the game, and he's left people with many, many good memories about his brilliance. And I think that adds more than averaging 45 or averaging 50. You know what I'm saying? And there's undoubtedly, and one of my favorite, you know, he had something to say about me in his book and this and that and whatever. And we're good, we're good friends today. But one of my favorite people that I played cricket with, a real soft-hearted, good guy. And I know you spent a lot of time with Hershey. Just a lovable guy that you'd love. He'd always be one you'd want around your dinner table because he'd always be entertaining.
Yeah, Daryll, I remember going late when he stopped playing. I used to bump into him at the gym at the Virgin Active Gym in
Yeah,
Greenpoint, and he finished his cricket career, but he was always in unbelievable shape, working out in the gym. He had these huge
yeah,
biceps, and Herchelle also in the gym. He would talk to everybody. Everybody knew
yeah,
Herschel at the gym, and he would make time in between. Sometimes he spent more time talking than training.
yeah,
But Herschel was chatting to everybody, and that's just Herschel, like a real character of the game, I think,
yeah. Good guy.
and a good
Yeah,
guy.
like like a lot of guys, you strip away. I've always said deep down, there's a really good guy there. There's a good person there. There's a good person there. But just a good batter. He played some shots. It was, I tell you, I don't think, have I ever told you the story about that? When we played at World Cup where he dropped Steve Waugh. Do you remember that?
No? I remember that, but I
Yeah,
don't remember the story. I
yeah, yeah.
remember that.
So Steve Waugh was this, that was at Headingley. I played that game. Him and I actually opened the batting. I got 50 odd. 56, and then I thought Warren by then was in his 8th over. I thought, right, I've got 50, and I've got to try and get this out. And I went on a big mow and got bowled, trying to prove a point and hit him over mid wicket. But he was virtually finished his spell. Herschel went on and got a good 100 there. And Steve Waugh played, to me, one of the best innings I've ever seen from someone who I played against. They were done and dusted. And he got that brilliant 120, 130. There were a couple of moments where he just closed his eyes and had a slog and pulled it off, honestly. And had we beaten them, then Australia were out of the World Cup. And they were still in. And then we had to beat Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe beat us, and Australia were in. First time they'd beaten us in 8 years, Zimbabwe, down at Chelmsford. But anyway, getting off the story. So Steve Waugh used to work the ball. He always got sort of like to get inside the ball, and work it outside of it, work it through the onside, even against spinners or seamers. So I'm standing in that position where Herschel dropped the ball. I'm been there 2-3 overs, and the ball's coming left or right. And my younger days, I would have backed myself, no doubt. But Herschel's in a position where Steve Warden hardly ever hits the ball, which was like an extra cover on the ring. So I went to him and I said to him, listen, all the traffic's here. He's our best fielder at that stage. I don't think Jonty was there. That was Hershey, basically. I said, listen, you come where I am. Let me go there. And I wasn't the worst sort of fielder then, but you've got to be thinking the way this guy's playing. You've got to get your best fielder there. So he agreed. So he went. It was just sort of not quite mid-wicket, not square leg. It was in that sort of little pocket there, giving yourself a chance to go left or right and, have a go at the run out. And that was Steve Waugh's bread and butter shot. All his cricket was that little one tucked away through behind square into mid-wicket area. The very next over, he's in there. I'm now standing at extra cover. The ball comes to Herschel, and in his sort of in his sort of trying to get the ball up, he had that habit where he would catch it and toss it and perform and carry on and that type of thing. So I tell you what, I believe in things happen. I would have been the oak who dropped that catch because I think that was meant to be. Ferry said it was him. I don't know if he ever remembers it. I clearly remember it. I said to him, now you must go there. I went there. The very next over, could have been the first or second or third, but it happened the very next over. The ball goes to Gibbs, he drops it. Yeah. So it would have been me, Quibus.
That would have been. I think it was a good move, Daryll.
It would have been me who dropped the World Cup.
No, then we're probably coming to the end of our podcast, but one name I have to throw in. I don't think I can do a podcast talk about the old players. There's so many we just don't have the time. But Meyrick Pringle, what a beauty! Eh?
Oh my God!
And what a bowler! What a swing, a genuine swing
Swing
bowler.
bowler of note, of note.
I would say in the Stephen
Tall,
Jeffries
yeah.
mold, yes.
You know, those two guys, and I became 56. So I've watched and played cricket at first class level for 40 years now. So that's why I say I think I've been around long enough now to have an opinion and say, well, the best I've ever seen. I think you know, maybe I should wait till like at 50 years of playing and watching cricket. Then perhaps you can start to talk about, well, the best I've ever seen. But to me, the best swing bowler ever I've in this time, I still yet to see one better, was Stephen Jeffries. That guy would have been a $2 million IPL buy every year for the last 10. No one in and out the butte, and he was at good pace, eh? And then bring that ability like a Dale Steyn also, you know, had that ability to you know, make it go late. Right? And that's the skill, really. It's not out the hand. I mean, those are easy to see. You can make up your mind early, but he had that ability to make it that, and he could bowl overs, and he was tall, and there was a time, you know, he was at good pace as well. But what a character. I played cricket against him when we were 11 years old.
Yeah.
Old Pring, eh? And he was more famous for his off the field
Yes.
antics as he was. Can I tell you a quick story? I'll
I
make it
would
as
love
quick
to.
as possible.
No, take your time.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's about 1987, I think, 87, 88. Anyways, that era. And you had 6 provincial teams, and then we had the Nissan Shield. It was 50 overs. It was our domestic 50 over competition called the Nissan Shield. And each opening game, your 6 unions played a country districts team. Like Natal went to play Natal Inland. Western Province, we played Eastern Province country districts. You know, so that was the opener essentially for all the teams, and essentially, you know, there were your 6 major teams. One, there was never ever, if ever, was but when I played for Border, we somehow always used to draw the Mean Machine, and we almost beat them once year. I was a schoolboy. Like 2 years of playing against them. Anyway, this year we Western Province draw Eastern Province to play in Craddock, which is about 4 hours drive from Port Elizabeth. So we go the day before, you see. We fly to, I mean, it's myself, I think Lazard would have played. Seif was the captain, Eric Simons,
Richie
Brian
Ryle from the
McMillan,
keeper.
Richie Ryle,
Yeah.
Meyrick Pringle.
Dave Rundle.
Dave Rundle was my
Dave.
housemate. We arrived Friday now, which generally, so we had to get to PE, hopped on the plane, we arrived there. We had drinks on the bus trip up to Craddock, which was about 4 hours. But they booked us in it's the Karoo National Park. It's the national park now, hey? So, but it's got chalets and accommodation. Craddock's a one-horse town. Everything closes at 6 o'clock. And it still is a one-horse town. Lovely little field against the competitive side. So we crashed. Some of us crashed early Friday night in this beautiful nature park. And as you drove in, you know, at night, you'll see animals. You see the eyes shine and the baby buck and that type of thing. And it would have had rhino on, would have had giraffe on, and all your small deer, you know, all that type of thing. And it's a big, one of our biggest national parks. And you drive quite a way in, you come to these camping chalets, which that's where we stay. Because there wasn't any decent accommodation in Craddock. Play the game Saturday. Eric Simons got, I think, 6 for like 4 or something. He bowled them out. And I got some runs and whatever. We leave. They have a little cocktail function. Nothing happens. We leave. There's not much. We're still hungry. We think, well, we're going to go into town, perhaps get something. There's no Spur in those days. Everything's closed. We can't get any, guys can't get any more beers or this and that. So we now head back, which is about a half an hour's trip to eventually get back to the place where we stay. And I mean, I'd had a big night before, scored runs, it was hot. I crashed. But anyway, the stories come out the next day. So then they sat, Robert Jackman would have been the coach. So now they sit in a boma, like real African style, fire in the middle, and stories get swapped. And yeah, but a dop was eventually found here and there, and the Oaks and I start. Pringle eventually now ends up. Now, Meyrick, I knew Meyrick from a kid. Now, Meyrick was a farm boy, hey? Proper farm boy. And I don't know the full story, but there was a time in the 80s, they had a big farm outside Bedford in that area. And him and his dad were put on the run for about 2 days, being chased through the bush by terrorists who actually, in those days, it was those times. And a very traumatic experience. I mean, his dad basically survived 2 days. The farm was a massive farm. How these guys tracked them, try to get to them, kill them. And they survived that. And so he was, when it comes to nature and being on the farm and farm life, I mean, he was the Crocodile Dundee through and through, you know, could speak the lingo and he could tell you anything and everything. So anyway, apparently he's now down, and there was like Lance Bleekers. Now these guys have had a really good time. They're now in the bush at night and whatever, around the rondavels. They're just down to their underwear, chasing each other, wrestling, playing games. And Pringle's now mad. You can see he's just on the juice. He's gone mad. So then I'm told it gets to here at about 9, 10 o'clock at night. Well, obviously. And the fire's going and the Oaks are now hungry. You can imagine now they're hungry. So Pringle's now basically in his jocks. It's warm. He's just being an absolute bloody lunatic. They said, boys, don't worry. I'll sort something out. So he grabs my mate, Brian McMillan. So we had 2 combis that transported us up. And remember those old Nissan Skylines? The manager got a Nissan Skyline. He had that big square boot. It was a fast car. McMillan tells the story, Pringle gets in, leaving out the kitchen, grabs a knife, proper knife. We're in a national park, don't forget that. So McMillan, okay, so they jump in the car. I'd love all these guys to come on and verify. You should actually bring them on and ask them all these stories that I tell about them, if they're true or not. So they hop in this car. Now you're in the middle of this game park. It's dark and whatever. And Pringle's now driving. He says, now watch this. As you drive, you see, if you go through the bush, I'm sure you've been through the bush, any buck that gets seen, it'll get stunned. And they spot a little duiker, which is a small little antelope. He's like, and they're normally inquisitive, and they come and they round the road, and you always find, it's the least path of resistance generally. Your game will move around the road where the roads are. They're there and they're looking at this thing. Pringle's behind the wheel. McMillan's next to him. Says, Mac, watch this. He guns, puts foot, hits this duiker over. This thing kicking there, slits its throat. McMillan's, I'm in a movie here. I don't believe what I've seen. Guts the bloody thing. Just now, can you imagine the scene? Now the guys, you're walking through the boma into the front area where the guys are sitting thingers. McMillan comes. The guys turn. Here comes Pringle. He's got this buck over his shoulders. The blood's dripping. He's got the knife. Yeah. He says, boys, now we're gonna braai. Apparently, they said to him, listen, let's just remind you, you're in a national park. You can't do this. We were out of there the next morning. We had to get a flight. We had to get a pee. So the call was 6 o'clock. You got to be outside ready to go. They made him take that thing. You had to put it back, clean up all the blood, put it back in that bucket, that Nissan Skyline. He went somewhere and told us, you dig a hole. You had to dig a hole. You had to bury that bloody thing, leave no trace of it whatsoever. At 6 o'clock, bang, we were gone. We were out of it. Nothing ever came of it. I guess they never picked up on it. But that's the sort of pranks. And he'd bowl a ball and he just couldn't help you, engage you as the non-striker. He would start to, it's called everybody was second hand. Hey, second hand. Oh, God. But what a bowler, what a cricketer. He's one of the all-time favorite cricketers of everybody. I'll bring. Yeah. Nice,
I'm going to squeeze in a quick little Pring story. He came to play for for Alma Maris one season, one of the many clubs I played for. I was also a bit of a cricket nomad around the club scene in Western Province and Boland. I don't think there's a club that I didn't play
for. Why did you listen? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Why did you go through so many clubs? Did you not pay your subs and then duck to the next one or what?
Well, I think I've got to remember, I also played till I was almost 50. I played club cricket. I started at 19 at Stellenbosch. I had a long club career. And
Did you just go where you could find a place in a team and you go there? If
that
you knew
was
you'd get
usually,
a place there, you get a place there.
I had this thing. I had to open the batting. I'm an openings bat. And then when I joined a new club and they said, okay, Kirby, you're batting number 6 or 5, I would throw my toys, pack my bag and go to another club where I could open the batting. So I was always looking where I could open the batting. But this season at Alma, and I did open the batting with Moggy Gerber. I think I told the story about
Oh,
it. And Gary Kirsten captained us and batted number 3. And then Pringle joined us that season. He came to play for the club. And I mean, we all knew Pringle could hit a long ball. So he talked himself.
Yeah.
He had a long chat with Gary and he talked himself into batting number 4. And the first 3 innings, I think he got his duck and a 1. He couldn't score a run. So for the 4th match of the season, we arrived and we won the toss. Gary said we're batting. I padded up and Pringle started padding up. And Gary said to him, it's okay, Pring, you don't have to pad up yet. And Meyrick said, what's this about, Gary? And he said, you're batting number 9. That's why you bat for Province, where you scored all your runs. This batting in the top 4 doesn't work. So he told Pringle to bat at number 9. And he went into a sulk. He told him, Gaza, just F off. And he was furious. And he went in at 9 and he was steaming. He literally ran on the field and I'll never forget, he got a 69 not out, batting at the 9. So when he came out, he confronted Gary. He said, yeah, Gaza, where am I batting in the next match? And Gary said, well, you're batting number 9. It's obviously your spot. So I laughed and he batted number 9 the rest of the season for Alma in club cricket. But no, you can in club cricket especially. Sorry, I mean, the Saturday you play club cricket with Pring, and the evening after the game, nobody remembered the wickets or the runs scored. It's just Meyrick stories and Meyrick chirps, and he was such a beauty to play cricket with. But anyway, Daryll, I think it's been quite a long podcast. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure the people's going to enjoy it, but I have to mention that. Now, you probably notice our podcast is looking more and more professional. They've got the nice little intro with the 2 of us, the title there, the Cricket Nomad. So I've just got to quickly mention the reason they're looking so professional is thanks to Kindling. The Kindling team, they deserve a big mention. They've been helping us on the technical side to make these podcasts look more professional. And they're also working on a few amazing projects at the time. One of them is building a personal digital assistant that will help people with a variety of tasks and just make life easier in general. And then they're busy with another very interesting project, which is called the Messaging Assistant, that can help new and small businesses grow their customer base very quickly. We'll definitely use this tool to reach more people for our podcast. And you can reach them on kindlingcore.com. That's their website. Please have a look. And maybe your own businesses can benefit from the Kindling team. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Speak to you soon.